I'm awake. So, using our senses in nature. The last few videos I did, one was using the eyes, right? Owl eyes. And another one was walking, which isn't necessarily a sense, but it fits right in. And so we talked about owl eyes, and that's using our peripheral vision. And it's, if you think of an owl, they can't move their eyes independently. They turn their whole head, and they often sit still for a long time, just looking like they're just staring, right? And because that's how they find their prey, is by the owl staying really still. It picks up minute details even at its, way at the edges of its peripheral vision. And so that's one of the ways we use our senses. So today we're going to wrap that up. We're just going to talk about each of the senses a little bit, and then I'll do another video later on. We'll tie everything together and we'll talk about why it's important. So I'm sitting here today on this historic rock wall, a gold rush era wall here in Northern California. So that, I don't know, I just think it's kind of neat that it was built that long ago. And so it wasn't too long ago that I was out in my backyard, down behind my house on the hill where it leads into the woods, that and I don't recall what I was doing down there, honestly, but the usual suspects were there, and part of the usual suspects are this pair of squirrels that are always hanging around, and so I was doing whatever it was I was doing, and one of the squirrels just started doing its, squirrel alert noise, danger noise, and I wondered if he was suddenly bothered by me being there, which they rarely are. And so I wondered what he was alerting about. What did he notice? And so I just sat still, and I immediately went into my sensory mode and went into my owl eyes mode to see, and kind of just faced the direction he was and just sat still. I just sat on the ground and just sat still and tuned into my senses, my hearing and my vision and everything. And so what I noticed is he scampered up a tree, and he was doing his puffed up tail thing and squawking, and then I noticed another squirrel a little way down scamper up a tree too, apparently in response, but I still couldn't see anything that was going on. I didn't. It was the squirrels, myself, and some birds, and bugs and lizards and the usual things that are going on. But I had patience, so I sat and I waited and I waited. Sure enough, I saw some dark movement out of the corner of my right side, my eye, and didn't hear anything, didn't smell anything, but I saw it, and I just detected the movement over here, and so I slowly kind of peeked over. There's a house cat, and just creeping through the woods, and the squirrels noticed it long before I did, and in fact, it was probably a good minute or 3 minutes before I figured out what they were going on about. And so it kind of begs the question, when we open up our senses like this, we're trying to utilize those skills that the critters have. And so what did the squirrel use, right? What's the squirrel's strong point? Do they have super good vision, in those brown almond eyes? Are those little ears? Did he hear the cat? Because the cat's is silent, Did he smell it with their noses? It seems to me they have really good sense of smell, because this year was a heck of an acorn harvest, and on my back deck I swept up a big pile of acorns, and the squirrels would come over and check them out, and they would sniff each acorn and pick them out deliberately, pick out certain acorns over other ones, so they could smell something inside. And you go break open acorns, and some of them are very fresh and green. Some of them are very dried out. Some of them are dried out and very moldy and nasty. So they can smell that stuff, apparently. So what enabled that squirrel to pick up that cat long before I did? So anyway, I think that's kind of a cool little anecdote, and kind of gets to some of the reasoning behind this. Um, so again, we'll go back to that same story of we've all seen people, clomping through the woods, right? Picture in the office, the lady with high heels on, and she walks and bangs her heel into the ground and clomp, 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 clomp. And that's kind of how a lot of people approach the woods too. And it's okay. I mean, we could go outside and, enjoy it in our own way. But when we attune to our senses, it broadens our experience and creates a closer contact with nature. It brings us closer to it. It brings a greater understanding. And with the goal of opening our awareness. Um, so think of the deer. So let's talk about hearing. Think of a deer and think of those big ears they have, especially out west, the mule deer. They have the big ears compared to the whitetail back east. But even still, either way, it's this big ear with big, huge muscles controlling it, and they can move independently, right? So that clues us in that hearing is a big deal to deer. And they hear things long before you and I ever would. But if we watch their behavior, when they feed, they put their head down, and they pick their head up, but their ears are always kind of going, aren't they? And so we can kind of start to tune into what they're doing. And so the first thing is, in all these things, owl eyes, the walking practice and the walking video, you can practice at home in your house. Think of the eye thing. We've all had mornings where we stayed in bed, right? And the sunlight's streaming in, and you're just kind of laying there staring at the ceiling, and you notice all the motes of dust kind of in the beams of sunlight, right? And at home you could practice your hearing. Think of, or you could practice your walking for sure in the house even, but hearing. So first thing is take your hands and cup them around your ears and just listen forward. It makes our hearing much more directional, straightforward, and I sure pick up. I can hear every little drop of water falling from the tree from the rain last night. Still like little drips. Bird calls that way. Where I am, unfortunately, there's a road over here, and the cars are going by every so often, kind of. But even that's part of our hearing, right? So we notice these things. It's not just about hearing; it's about noticing. So again, cup your hands in reverse. What's going on behind you? If it helps, close your eyes and just sit quietly and tune in to your hearing. Do one forward and one backward. Play around with it, do different things. And close your eyes and just sit. Take in every little sound. And when you're in your house, start to pay attention to the sounds of the electronics going on, the hum of the refrigerator, the sounds that, maybe the buzz of the computer in the back room or something like that. All the different sounds that go on in our houses. It's really a loud place. And that's why kind of when the electricity goes out, when you lose power, everything seems so like boom, dead, right? It's just this silence. And there's just so much going on, and we just tend to get used to it. So each of these sensory exercises and ideas is to break us out of that habituation of just going through life, with our tunnel vision and so much going on in our heads that we're not focused outward, right? So think of how many times have you walked in the woods and you'd like kind of come to and you're thinking, okay, well, the last 5 miles I've been thinking and I haven't really been aware of the woods, right? So, and that's going to be a topic for another video, combining our senses with being present. So hearing, smell. So we had a bunch of rain last night, and you guys, I'm sure most of you are very familiar with the smell of the woods after a rain, but get a little bit closer. Smell the dirt, smell the leaves. maybe breathe in through your mouth with the leaves there. Just kind of, you don't have to even taste anything, but I definitely, when I do that, I get a sense of kind of that earthiness, that dirt thing across my taste buds without putting anything in there, in my mouth. So, um, nice deep smell. What do you smell that way versus short smells? So think of the bear, think of the coyotes, think of the animals that use their scent, that use their sense of smell a lot, and in finding food and that kind of thing, and that smell danger on the wind. Um, so again, you can sit back and you can isolate that particular sense. You can close your eyes, just take in the smells and identify how many different smells. The wet earth, maybe the smell of some flowers that wafts through every once in a while. Um, go smell things deliberately, pick things out, pick up leaves off the ground and that kind of thing. So we did ears, eyes, smelling. Tasting is a big one, believe it or not. And so as the stuff all ties together, think about how it's going to relate to maybe wild foraging, wild edibles, that kind of stuff. So um, think of how the senses might have been important to our ancestors um, in discovering what's edible and what isn't, and being able to distinguish between the subtleties of something that is edible and something that is not, right? So feel is a big one. So we kind of touched on feel a little bit on our walking one, right? So we were feeling along with our feet sometimes, and that might help us get away from this thing of we have to look where we're walking. So we're walking through, and we have this tunnel vision on the trail in front of us, so we don't trip and fall. So if we slow down and we use our feet as senses, feel sense, maybe we don't have to be so focused on that. We can open up our other senses, right? So so feel. So you can touch things with your fingers. It's a big, one of our most important senses that we rely on quite a bit, next to probably sight. But there's also, if I lay back and I close my eyes, I can feel, any subtle air movement across my skin. I can feel my heart beating in my chest. I can feel when I'm talking the vibrations of my vocal cords. So my senses can go inward too. But I feel all the things going on directly inside of me. I can feel the air movement through my mouth and through my nose. I can feel temperature variations, right? So maybe if there's a cause to, you can feel vibrations in the ground, all kinds of things. So we start to pay attention to and think about what animals might be really dependent on feel. What animals hunt by vibration, right? So some insects do, we know that much. Raccoons have their hands, their tremendous sense of feel and tactile um, ability in their hands, so they feel a lot for their food and eating and that kind of thing. So a lot of animals rely on feel, and so we're gonna, again, when we start talking about maybe wild edibles and that kind of thing, feeling. Each of our senses is going to tell us different things about the plants. It's going to tell us what's good, what's not so good, um, as far as what we can utilize in what way, what's edible, what's good. How can we tell if we go into a strange woods, if we go on a vacation somewhere and we go hiking, and it's not our home range, right? So the trees are different, and the flora and fauna is all different, and so how can our senses tell us what wood is good for fire, or what wood is going to work well for friction fire, or those kind of things? So making whatever tools we feel like we're going to be making at the time. Um, so all these senses really come in, and they play an important role. And so not only on a practical level, but on just a relationship level. And so what I'm going to do is stop this for now and go back and watch, if you need to, go back and watch the eyes video, the seeing, watch the walking one, and watch this one. And really take some time and, isolate each sense. And you can do this at home in your backyard. You don't have to be out in the woods necessarily. But if you are out on some of your trips in the woods, have the first thing you do when you arrive at your sit spot, or you arrive at your favorite camp spot, and you're kind of, if you're like me, you're kind of away from the crowds, right? And so, arrive at your spot, whether you drove in with your truck or you walked in, and then just sit, tune into all these senses. And each time you arrive at that same spot, tune into your senses, see what's changed, see what's different from the last time. And, so at the beginning, isolate each one. Use the eyes for a while, use the hearing for a while. And, listen for things that are what's close, what's maybe off in the distance, what's behind you, what's to the side of you. All these different things, and start to tune into that. And then start putting it all in together. So when you're walking, use your all eyes, but also tune into your hearing, and tune into, what are you smelling? What what can your kind of taste buds detect on the air? And so all these things. Start to put it together. And then the next time I make a video, it'll be about combining those things and more about why it matters. So anyway, I think some of my woods experiences, I remember as a kid, and I was really I loved spending time in the woods alone, and it was one of my favorite activities. But then as adult life came on, and you're supposed to get a job and a career and all this stuff, I kind of got away from it for a little bit. But when I rediscovered this stuff, I found that it reactivated that childhood curiosity and excitement that the natural world brings. So there's lots of benefits, and we'll talk more about it later. And but anyway, thank you very much for taking the time to hang out, and give this stuff a try. Just give it a shot. I encourage you to. It's a lot of fun. Gives us a little bit of a different perspective, and some awareness and that kind of thing. And I think when we feel like we're aware in the woods, or we're aware when we're walking down a dark street, at night in a city somewhere, awareness is never a bad thing. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will come back and talk about some more of this stuff later. So take care for now.